Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt." Driving by the church this week, and I saw the sign out there, mob mentality. It didn't even occur to me until I saw it. Are we talking about organized crime mentality? Or are we talking about large groups? In case you're wondering, we're talking about large groups, not organized crime today. Mobs, do they play a role in our lives? Do we see them regularly? I have to say, yeah, we do. One of the biggest mobs that we see is on TV. There's a couple of game shows. There's one versus 100, where it's one person against the mob. That's what they're called. And it just slowly picks them away. But they don't have a true mob mentality. They're just selfish, trying to get what they can. Understandable. But there's another game show that has a mob that really plays a role in how the contestant thinks. You ever watch Deal or No Deal? One person picks an envelope, or picks a suitcase, briefcase, and in it is a certain amount of money. And the hope is that there's $1 million in there. So they start picking away the other briefcases, and the amounts come off the board, and the banker, after a while, comes on and says, "Well, I'll offer you this much money to sell your suitcase." And it's mathematically figured out by what's left on the board. And that's when the mob kicks in. The mentality of the mob kicks in and says, "No deal, no deal, no deal." I've seen people on this game, and I have to admit, I don't like this game because of the mob. Give up $300,000, $300,000+ for the hope that there's still $1 million in that suitcase. And the mob just keeps urging and charging forward. No deal, no deal, no deal. But what does the mob have to lose? Eventually the briefcase is open and they win $10. And what does the mob do? Oh, it's no skin off of their back. They didn't get $10, and $10 big deal. They don't get a portion of what else is out there. But this one contestant listens to the mob and often ignores family, who is saying, "That's $300,000, you gotta take it." They listen to the mob. Aaron listened to the mob. Moses had gone up the mountaintop to talk with God, to kind of get a plan as to where they were going. You see, this is the second time Moses has been up there. He's already come down with the commandments. And he goes back up, and the Israelites can't wait 40 days. Moses has been up there so long that something must have happened to him. And so they turn to Aaron and say, "We need a leader. We need somebody who can move us forward, because Moses is gone. And so we need a God." So Aaron fashions a calf. out of their gold earrings, melts it down, sculpts it, and in the same fashion that they had just done a few chapters earlier in Exodus, when the commandments came down, they built an altar, they gave praise to God, they ate and drank, and they celebrated. When Aaron puts the calf in front of the altar, to me it's an interesting twist to keeping with what he believes and what he's been instructed and what the mob wants. Because he says, tomorrow we will give offerings to the Lord. Aaron talks about offerings to Yahweh, to God. Because there's still a sense of relationship to God that the people don't understand. But Aaron does. In many ways, Aaron is made to look like the bad guy here. But Aaron is trying to keep some peace. He's trying to not be the one guy in the parable who didn't come in the way. He's trying to stay true, but yet he's giving in to the needs of the people. The people need something to believe in, a direction to focus. And isn't that what mobs do? Mobs stand up when there's no leadership. When they feel that something needs to be done, a mob rises up, and there's usually one or two people who take control. Mobs step up when there's injustice. We see case after case through history. The one that kept coming to mind was Rodney King. The mobs that rose, the riots that set up because of the injustices that were done. But then as I was thinking about it this week, I had to wonder, are all mobs bad? They tend to get associated with negative thoughts because we remember the bad things that happens when a mob kicks in. But what about when a mob steps up for good? We've talked about these flash mobs that started as a way to express some kind of happiness. They started a few years ago with the singing of the Hallelujah chorus. Not a bad thing. Sometimes mobs have a way of being able to change thoughts. A few weeks ago, on our website was posted a video, and maybe some of you may have seen it either through that or on the news, of a mob, if you will, that gathered in Utah because there was a car burning after an accident with a motorcycle. And the cyclist was trapped underneath the car. Sure, the death was to come. And a mob came up and literally picked up this car, this burning car, and one person reached under and pulled him out. They could have stepped back and just watched in horror. But the mob took action. And since then, several other cases have come up where groups of people had come together on spur of a notice, spur of a moment, to do good. Isn't that what God's calling for us to do? Isn't God calling us to come together as a mob? Because sometimes they draw the most attention. And sometimes they're unorganized. But they come together for a specific purpose. So what if the Christians of Willow Grove were to all of a sudden come together for something they believed in? Not just us. Because then it's a church event. But us, Willow Grove Baptist, Willow Grove Presbyterian, Calvary Presbyterian, St. Anne, St. Michael's Lutheran Church, or Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. What if all of them were to get together and say, you know what? Let's do something as a group to make a difference in our lives. And maybe, just maybe, it might rub off so that the mob mentality took hold in a positive sense. We didn't have riots, but we had giving. We didn't have chaos, but we had love. We didn't have evil, but we had Christ. Mob mentalities are not a bad thing. If you see something going on, grab a piece of it. For the life of me, I've been trying to remember the one commercial, and you probably know the commercial, where a lady's standing on a street corner and a bicyclist comes by, and a good deed is done, and in turn they do a good deed, somebody else sees it, in turn they do a good deed, and what happens at the end of it? It comes back to the person who did the first good deed. That's a mob mentality. Because it spreads. There's joy. Not all mobs are bad. And so I encourage all of us, myself included, to be careful of the mob mentality. Not to get into the bad mobs. Because it's easy to do. Conversations get held and you just get sucked in. Actions take place and you just get sucked in. Peer pressure that we talk to our kids about. It happens to us. But what if we were to watch the mob mentality and look for the positives and jump in on those? What a difference it would make in our personal lives. But yet, like the commercial, you also don't know who's watching and the difference that it makes in their life. It's easy to go one way. Naturally, we want to go get pulled in. But let's work against nature. Let's look for the positive mobs and make a difference in everyone's life. And all the meanwhile, we're giving glory to the one who has given it all to us. To God alone be the